In this video, we will set up the camera and equipment for documenting an RTI. We will focus here on capturing an RTI that is face down, but the process is largely the same for those that are on vertical surfaces. When working in the field, it is nearly always the case that the area that you intend to document needs to be cleaned of leaves and debris, as these will show up in the final result and make interpretation harder. When the area is clean, the first step is to invert the tripod head and set it to 90 degrees. It is important that the tripod is set up securely so that it is not able to move around. This can be achieved by replacing the feet with spikes on uneven and soft ground, but you must remember to be careful not to damage the surface you want to record. Be mindful of where the light is coming from, so you do not cast a shadow over the subject with one of the tripod legs. The camera is then attached to the tripod and arranged so that it is facing the ground. We like to wrap the camera strap around the top of the tripod for security. A transmitter trigger is then added to the hot shoe of the camera and set to trigger the receiver trigger, which will be attached to the flash. A receiver trigger is then attached by a shutter release cable to the camera. This will take signal from the transmitter that the photographer holds. We also tie this to the top of the tripod stand so that it is out of the way. If you're using a solid surface like rock art, you should focus the camera here and then turn off autofocus and image stabilization on the camera lens. If you're using a movable object, even though the camera cannot be focused yet, it is a good reminder that this needs to be turned off at all times throughout the shoot. The flash and its receiver trigger are then attached to the monopod. We commonly tie a stick to a length of string, which should be 2 times the length of the surface that you are trying to capture. This ensures that the flash will be the correct distance from the surface at all times. We have attached a bolt to our monopod so that it is easy to determine which direction it is facing. The transmitter trigger that starts the whole process is then set up. If you're using a small movable object as your target, it is good practice to add this now, as the risk of it being damaged during setup by anything falling off is diminished. Finally, add the reflective spheres to the surface. It is preferable that the spheres are not placed too close to the corners of the image, as this will distort the shape of the spheres, and the spheres should have enough size that they take up at least 250 pixels in the resulting photograph. Be aware at this point that the spheres will create shadows. It is best if you can align them with the legs of the tripod, or ideally place them below the surface if possible. If you are using a vertical surface, attach them to a tripod with a boom arm. It is worth noting that the software can only use one sphere at present, but having 2 is a good failsafe. When you're ready, turn on the camera and set it to manual mode. Say f-stop to somewhere between 5.6 and 11, using as low as possible. This will ensure that your images are sharp and less grainy. There should also be sufficient depth of field to ensure that you're not adding blur to your photos. Set the ISO as low as you can, preferably to 100 but up to 400. This will ensure that your pictures are grain free. You'll need to set your shutter speed to about 1/320th of a second to ensure that the light from the flash reaches the subject on time. If you set it faster, you'll see a stripe on the photograph. You can of course set it slower than this. At this point, if you haven't already, focus the camera with automatic focus on the lens and then be sure to turn it off along with image stabilization if the lens has it. If you do not do this, there is a strong risk that the lens will refocus during the process and you'll have to start over. You'll now want to take some test photographs and check how the lighting is. Ideally you want to be able to see a full spread on your histogram, which on our camera is displayed using the info button. Avoid peaks at the white end of the spectrum as this is lost information. Remember that you can also change the intensity of the flash if there is too much peak at the top end. Peaks at the black end are inevitable in the lower rate shots as there will be areas with dark shadow. A photograph without the flash at this point should result in a dark image, as you want the photograph to be lit by the flash. In this video we've covered setting up the equipment and positioning the reflective spheres. We've also covered setting up the camera. In the next video we'll demonstrate how to take a successful RTI photography set.